Okay, so let's go ahead and have this conversation. One of the things that drives me crazy is the number of people who talk about wealth on the internet, but never give you specifics. When I was in sales, you could not make a sale unless you gave the customer the numbers. No one was like, "Hey, I want to buy office furniture from you. Just give me, just slide the invoice under the door and I'll pay it." No, they wanted to know what the numbers were. And this is one of the biggest issues in terms of YouTube. And people were talking about, you know, uh, having real wealth and all this other stuff. And this is a video by Will Motivation. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people like Will. It sounds very, very smart because the average person who's watching this doesn't understand that he's not saying anything. It sounds good, but without specifics, this stuff is not usable. You can't use it at all. So let's kind of get into it and let's see what he has to say because this is going to be interesting.
Get a high paying job, or maybe you start a business, or maybe you have some investments going that as soon as those investments or that business or that job is producing high income or a really high amount every month, they think they are wealthy. And I'm going to explain to you in today's video why that is not necessarily the case. First of all, if you're tuning in to my video for the first time, my name is Will Motivation. I like to do videos like this, sharing my experience, with all.
Okay. So right there, this whole thing about people who feel that they had high income. The first time I had income, I made $500,000 a year. Well, that year I made 500,000 plus. I didn't feel like I was wealthy. I felt that I was paid. I knew I was earning some money, but I didn't think I was wealthy. So I don't even know where that notion comes from. Let's continue.
All of my years of owning a business, being an investor, and really on this channel, I do a lot of car content. So behind me, you see my Ferrari SF90. And the reason I wanted to do this video is because a lot of people think I'm actually younger than I really am. And the reason why that's relevant is because I didn't buy a Ferrari SF90 or a Lamborghini or a Porsche or some of these exotic cars that you see on my channel. I did not buy them before I felt like I had the necessary investments and wealth built up to justify having.
Okay. He keeps saying wealth and investments without specifics. Now, I have something that's under this channel. It's called the Wealth Pack. It defines what wealth is. And before we even get into this, because I already know what he's going to say, Will Motivation is not even at the entry level of real wealth. Let me say this again. Will Motivation is not even at the entry level of real wealth. And you're going to see why in a minute.
Having a car like a Ferrari SF90 that's behind me. I didn't get that until I had some wealth built up and not just high income. Now, based on my income, I probably could have afforded a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a Porsche, that kind of thing. I could have afforded it many, many years ago, more than 15 years ago, I could have afforded it. But the difference between high income and wealth is that wealth is when you have money saved up or investments and assets that are able to produce on their own a high income for you to then leverage, either by reinvesting it or using it for some of these things like an exotic or a supercar or even.
Okay. He keeps saying wealth and investments, wealth and investments. He doesn't give you a specific investment. He doesn't give you specific wealth. He just keeps saying wealth and investments.
And better things like helping your family out or investing in other businesses or continuing to grow that wealth. Whereas a high income is just a lot of money coming in for an unspecified amount of time, right? So you may have a really high paying job. You may have a really high income for a moment. But the thing is, we don't know how long that's going to last. So that's why it's important for you to build wealth. And you build wealth by buying assets that produce income themselves and then allowing that to accrue and grow on its own. And then you can start using some of the profits and not the principal, right? So use profit, not principal. That's something that will be a theme of this video. All right, so I got some different points that I wrote down to make sure I cover to help you all digest this video and why, high income does not equal wealth. First of all, income is temporary, ownership is permanent. That's why I say it's important to have assets. So like high income is a lot of times tied to active effort, like your salary, your contracts that you might have, some deals you might have, some content you created. Whereas wealth is built through ownership of assets that continue to produce value without your daily involvement. So,
Okay. Now, let's go ahead and have a very real conversation here. The average person doesn't have enough money to actually buy something that will have a development of wealth or passive income that they can afford to buy a Ferrari from the profits of their investments. It's just not happening. It's just not happening.
so basically that's what I just described, but you know, you got to use ChatGPT to back you up. But here's the thing. Income stops when you stop working. Whereas if you have an asset, that asset can continue to work for you even though you stop working. And that's what real wealth is all about.
Notice he keeps saying the word asset, but he doesn't define what the asset is.
So let me give you an example. I might make a lot of money in a good year, but if I stop having a good year, that income can slow down or even stop. Real life scenario for me, 2025 has been one of the worst years for me from a business standpoint, from an income standpoint, probably in the last 10 years. This is 2025. However, in 2025, I bought this Ferrari SF90. I bought a Porsche 911 GTS. I bought a bunch of stuff that you guys probably have seen on this channel, but I would not have purchased those different things if I did not have assets that were continuing to work and generate income for me, even though I'm having a down year from an income perspective based on my job or my business. All right. So that's lesson number one. Income is temporary, ownership is permanent. Lesson number two, lifestyle costs grow faster than income, right? So think about that. You may have a great paying job. A lot of times we make the mistake of as our income goes up with that job, we get a bigger house, we get a nicer car, we start buying better clothes, we start going on better vacations.
Now, this is something that's not true. When I wrote my first book, once I started making 20,000 a month, I kept my lifestyle the same. I was living in an apartment. I didn't move until the next year when my income went up. And then I said, okay, it's now safe to move my income up, move my lifestyle up. But typically, the average person, I give you a good example. I have two friends who are nurse anesthetists. These are the people who go to school, the assistant anesthesiologists, and both of them together make about 300,000 a year. They're a couple, and we're just sitting around talking one day, and they was like, "Yeah, we know we got to do something with this money in the bank." I was like, "What do you mean?" It was like, "We got like $700,000 in the bank. It just happened." Because they're normal people. They don't have crazy habits. So they were making so much money, it just stacked. And they lived in a nice house, and he drove a Range Rover. She drove the G Wagon. And they were spending money and they were living well, but there was so much money coming in there that it just didn't make a difference.
Vacations, we start getting these timeshares, and we start getting expenses to match our income. When in all reality, what I recommend, or what I've done, at least with my own strategies, is I prefer to spend while our income is high. You need to be buying assets and investments while the income is high. When that income may slow down, then those assets and investments can kick in and balance things out. So a lot of times also high earners, just because you're making a lot of money does not necessarily mean that you're netting a lot of money. So the net is what you have over after you pay your expenses. So if you have a whole lot of expenses related to the bills that you pay, the house that you own, the car that you drive, then you're not netting enough to be able to invest. And what you always want to do is make sure you're netting as much as possible so that you can invest as much as possible. And also, this is one thing, like a lot of people talk about my clothing. Like, look, I have a hoodie on, some sweatpants. I don't have a lot of expensive clothing. The most expensive things that I own that people could see would be my houses or some of my specialty exotic cars. And the one thing about those expensive houses and expensive cars is that they usually hold their value or they can go up in value. And sometimes it depends on timing because you could have a down real estate market.
Well, this is the reason that these cars hold their value. Typically, when someone has enough money to afford one of these cars, that's not the only car. I had a BMW X5M, and a Porsche 911S. In that 1 year, I put 10,000 miles on both cars. Collectively, I put 5,000 on this one and 5,000 on that one because I worked from home and I didn't go out there. So typically, people who have these type of cars, that's not their only car. So this is one of the reasons the resale value stays up. Because when I traded in my 911 Turbo, my 911S for the 911 Turbo S, they gave me like 115,000 for that as a trade-in. So yeah, you know why they gave me that much money? It didn't have a lot of miles on it. It didn't have a lot of miles. So if you're a person who can afford something like that, yeah, typically it's going to retain its value because you're not going to be running it into the ground.
You can have a down exotic car market, but if you get the right car, you get the right house, the right real estate, those things tend to appreciate or hold value so that you can liquidate at a future point in time. Whereas certain things like certain clothing, going on expensive vacations, some of those things you can never pull any money back out of those expenses. So I try to minimize those types of expenses. And also I try to minimize how fast my lifestyle is growing. Also, you can't forget point number 3, taxes and overhead take a bigger cut than people realize. So you might have high.
Okay, he just said something really, really key. Taxes and overhead. This tells me that Will Motivation doesn't know about the holding company concept. There's a lot of people who don't know how holding companies work and the tax advantages of a holding company. With a holding company properly structured and with the right information, taxes is your least worry. Your least worry. The holding company allows you to create direct income and offset taxes because at some point you do have to pay taxes, but that tells me a lot about his finances. If he's paying a lot of money in taxes, he doesn't have the proper holding company set up. He's not managing his money correctly. Even though he's making a lot of money, he's not managing it correctly.
Income, but the higher your income, the more taxes you'll pay, right? So think about it. You got federal taxes, state taxes, self-employment taxes, all different types of taxes, property taxes. So you have to remember, just because you're bringing in high income, when you start increasing your expenditures, you're going to be paying more taxes. Or when you buy things, for example, when you buy a new car, you got to pay taxes on the new car. You buy a new house, you got to pay property taxes on a new house. So you got to be careful. Just because you have high income, don't forget you're going to have higher taxes and expenses. So, the number of people isn't the number that actually hits the account. The number that people see is not the actual number that hits your bank account. So you might see, for example, a football player is making $3 million a year. But guess what? After taxes hit, their agent fees hit, all those fees hit, they're not bringing home $3 million a year. They're going to bring home much less than that. Luckily, if they get half of that. Now, here's the other thing. Cash flow does not equal net worth. So you may have a cash flow of, let's say, $15,000 a month. Take out all of your expenses, your living expenses, add that up for a year.
Now, I will agree with him on this point. Cash flow doesn't equal net worth. But here's the thing. Because when you have consistent and high cash flow, you can live like a certain kind of person. You can live like a millionaire. Cash flow is the most important thing. And this goes back to investments. Like if you have investments, but your cash flow is low, and I think his investments are going to be real estate, and it's going to be leveraged real estate because he's not paying cash for this real estate. So his cash flow is going to be diluted. Now, what do I mean by that? All right. So you got a piece of real estate, right? You went ahead and put a down payment down it, and then you actually financed it. There's something called carrying cost. So you got to pay the bank for that loan, which dramatically reduces the money you get out of the investment. I mean, there are some people who literally played it so close that 95 or 99% of the money that comes in from the property goes to pay service debt, which is crazy.
That does not equate to your net worth. Your net worth is the sum of all of the things that you own, all of the assets that you own, and then you subtract all of your debt, what you owe. That'll be your net worth, right? So don't confuse your income. Just because you're making a lot of money does not mean you have a high net worth. You start having a high net worth when you take the money that you're making and you start investing it and growing your net worth by the acquisition of assets. And then hopefully those assets are producing income for you and growing your net worth all the time. And hopefully those assets are also going up in value themselves. So for example, you buy a really nice house in a really nice neighborhood that's growing, that people want to be in, then likely that house is going to appreciate in value.
All right. This is one of the things that just drives me crazy. He keeps saying assets, 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 but he doesn't say what type of access. He doesn't talk about it specifically. He doesn't talk about the structure. And this is where people get in trouble because this is general advice. On the surface, it sounds really smart. But in practicality, what can you do with this advice? Please tell me in the comments. Now, if you want to know what real wealth is, I got a free download. The link is in there. You can download what, and I guarantee you, Will is not even at the beginning level of real wealth. Now, what do I mean when I say real wealth? To be really wealthy in today's economy, your net worth needs to be 10 to 15 million. That's the beginning of real wealth. And it goes up, and it goes up much more. And I guarantee you, just the way he's speaking and the posture and the tone he takes, Will motivation is not in the world of real wealth. Now, Will makes more money than the average person, but he's not at the doorstep of real wealth. Guarantee it.
You over time and grow your net worth if you own that house. Also, let's say you rent the house out and you're making a nice return on it. After all of your expenses, you might be making a profit on it. So that asset is producing income that if you save it or reinvest it will also increase your net worth as well.
Now, he just said something. He actually named an asset. If you have a house that you're renting out and you get a return, he just said something that I found to be amazing. Typically, if you have a house and you have a debt, a mortgage on it, your returns are not going to be that good. I'm literally talking to, I knew a girl who's in the real estate game, and she made a very high income. She made like 250,000, and she would buy trashed up houses that were destroyed that she and her team could fix up, and then she would rent out. And because the houses were trashed, she got them super cheap. She didn't go out and buy regular houses. Her first 20 houses were all rehabs and trash. And that allowed her, like right now, she's rolling because property values have skyrocketed. But typically, if you buy a regular normal house that doesn't need rehab, you're not going to make that money from much money from one house. You're not going to make enough money from one house to go out and invest in something else. You would need 20, 30, 40 houses before you even get started talking about that. But he did not say that. He said a house. One house.
As well. One of the biggest impacts I've had personally on my net worth is through the acquisition of real estate. Like, I don't know how much I've invested in real estate over the last 10 to 15 years, but I would estimate maybe $3 to $4 million. And
okay. All right. This is a huge tell. He doesn't know how much. 3 to 4 million. Now, here's the thing. I'm starting a business. I can tell you exactly how much money I spent. 15,000. I rented an office, I bought inventory, I bought stuff. I can tell you exactly how much money I spent. The fact that he cannot tell you exactly how much money he spent is a huge problem. Also, I'm going to say it. Let's say he spent 4 million investing in real estate. And let's say the real estate doubled in value. So that, he spent 4 million and the real estate is now worth 8 million. Is Will motivation worth 8 million? No. Why? Because that real estate has debt that has to be serviced. So he may have sunk in 4 million in equity, and that has grown as the real estate prices went up. But I guarantee you, Will isn't at the doorstep of what I consider to be real wealth. Not even close.
Over the last 10 to 15 years, I'm not going to say how much my net worth is, but those.
Okay, that was the tell. I'm not going to say what my net worth is. Typically, when people shy away from that, they're not impressed or the number's not that good. So he knows that the number is not that good, and that's why he doesn't want to share it.
assets have appreciated significantly over the last 10 to 15 years over what I actually invested. So I don't know if I'll delete that or leave it in here, but you all can take that for what it's worth. All right. Number 5 point, wealth is control, not consumption. So think about it. True wealth is about control over time, choices, and stress levels, not spending power. High income gives options. Wealth gives freedom. So rich looking is not the same as being secure. Peace of mind is the real benchmark. Real wealth is not having to explain, rush, or react, right? I love that. I love that because for me, especially the older you get, the more you appreciate that. You may be making a lot of money for a certain amount of time, which gives you a lot of options. And hopefully one of those options for you is in investing so that you can have wealth down the road, so that when you have that wealth gives you peace of mind and options, right? But in order to get that wealth, you got to invest and build on a high income once you get that high income. All right. So hopefully you guys found this informative. On this channel, I like to share my experiences and give you some food for thought, to provoke thought, so that maybe I help somebody out there that aspires to have wealth and not just high income. But before you can build wealth, when you got to do it yourself, you need to focus on having the high income first. And then once you have the high income, don't just go out and spend. You need to be focused on investing before spending. And once you've invested and built up wealth, and your wealth is generating more income for you, then you can have some fun in life and start spending. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. I don't always like to just show me having fun with the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and stuff like that are on my channel. I like to give you guys some insight so that you can do the same if you so choose. But more than anything, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. I wish you the best. Happy holidays to you, and stay tuned for more good content as I got some crazy stuff lined up.
All right. I'll share a secret. Will Motivation made this video talking about his car. And he said he had to finance his car because his money was tied up in investments. All right. I am someone that paid cash for a 911 Turbo S. I am someone that paid cash. I bought a blue Porsche, a red Porsche, the yellow Porsche. And also in the same month, I bought a Porsche and a BMW X5M and paid cash for both of them. Hear me and hear me well. Anytime someone comes online and says, well, I didn't take the cash out because it was in my investment, they're talking about the consequence that, hey, if I move this cash out my investments, I no longer have the investment, and I put it in this car, and it could be a sunk cost. Now, I was in a position, for me, my investment was my business, and my business made money month after month after month. Made enough money where I could buy a Porsche and a BMW in the same month, and next month I reloaded with cash. That's not his situation. And, depending upon, I don't know what his finances is, because like we had this beef and he came at me. Well, he tried to start something. He's like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. But once again, anytime someone tells you that the reason that they're financing a car, and this is finance 101, when you finance a car, you pay more money for the car than you have to. If you had the cash to pay cash for the car, that's what you would do. Another gentleman, Richard Fain, he said the same thing. Now, during COVID, Richard's income exploded, and his next car, he paid cash because he had the money. But when he didn't have the money, that's when he had to finance. And this is the bullshit that these guys tell you, make you think, well, I got my money over here in investments, so I'm going to go out here and finance this car. It's not true. It's not true at all. So once again, I have a link down below where you can download, because I would say his net worth, based on the way he's talking, I would say his net worth is probably like 6 million, 7 million. And the beginning of real wealth is 10 to 15 million. And Will's not anywhere there. Now, once again, Will is making a lot of money. Will is living comfortable, and Will can buy all the toys he wants. But Will is not in the world of real wealth, not at all. Let me know your thoughts and opinions, and I will talk to you guys later.